E3 has finally managed to occur, should I say, in this year of 2016. It's a yearly event, as everyone should know by now. And in the previous E3 of 2015, I was very much impressed by what Microsoft had to show and what Microsoft had to say for its Xbox One console and all the games that were happening to it. I believe, if I were to remember correctly, if I were to check my old E3 videos from last year, since I seem to give my opinion of some of the events and a summary of E3 every year, I believe I thought that Microsoft was the best of all the conferences. So this year started off. On the 12th of June was the E3 conference for EA, Electronic Arts, and for Bethesda. I believe on June 13th will be the rest of the conferences, i.e. Ubisoft, Microsoft, and Sony. I think that's it. And to be honest with you, this year I feel like focusing most of my attention on EA, Microsoft, and Sony. Ubisoft and Bethesda, well, I've already seen the Bethesda conference, and to be honest with you, there isn't really much to talk about. They talked about how most of the actual gameplay footage of the games that they'll be showing, i.e. Quake, the new Quake game, the new Skyrim remastered, and all that stuff will be shown at QuakeCon. So it's like they took all their best selling topics and pretty much used them to hype out the next QuakeCon event, which I believe is in August. For now, they're just teasing some things. Prey, the new Prey game, Prey 2, finally being shown. It had been cancelled before in like early 2012, was it 2011? But pretty much I wasn't impressed with Bethesda. Well, at least I wasn't impressed enough to make a video, as I'm really short on time these days. I don't really know what else to say. But personally for you, if you never caught the Bethesda conference, you can find it on the internet. It's very easy to locate and find, and probably you can make some summaries and conclusions to yourself. So in this particular video, I'll be talking about EA, what the main key points that I saw during the conference. Will probably link a Google document in the description, or just copy and paste my notes into the description, because each conference that I watch, I always jot down notes in a notepad just so as to see what key points did I manage to extract from the entire presentation, instead of just being wowed by hype and graphics and trailers and stuff. It's very easy these days just to get blown away by presentations but not actually think about what is going on. So I always like typing and writing during these conferences so as to assess what thoughts I'm actually having. So in the case of Electronic Arts, the first big thing that they opened up with was Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 had already been leaked prior to E3. We already knew it was coming this year, and it's actually going to come 7 days after Battlefield 1. So I'm assuming that they believe that the market, the FPS market, is split, and currently the people who will be hyped for Battlefield 1 are more hyped for older shooter games, because Battlefield 1 will be set in World War I, and Titanfall 2 is a futuristic shooter about pilots, robots, and intergalactic warfare. So they're assuming that in that regard, there won't be much conflicting interests into whether I'm going to consumers will purchase Battlefield 1 or they'll purchase Titanfall 2. They believe their consumer base is not the same. At least that's what I think this marketing strategy is for. Another way you could look at it is the fact that potentially what they're saying is that by putting their shooter in the same week or the same month as another major shooter, they will get some media coverage, because media outlets during the month of August will be going wild. For example, they'll be like, Deus Ex is coming out in August, such a big game, most anticipated. They'll be talking about how No Man's Sky will be coming out in August, and other great games that will be coming out in August. And guess what? Battlefield, the COD killer, Rip COD, oh my goodness, Battlefield 1 will be coming out in August. And then people will be like, wow, August truly is a great month for gaming. What else is there? Titanfall 2. There's a danger of placing your game in an empty month. Like for example, the month of June doesn't seem to have a lot of big budget game releases that I'm aware of. Maybe I've forgotten. There's a lot of DLC and expansions of pre-existing games, of course, but most games that were supposed to come out in June have been delayed till further notice, some till August in the case of No Man's Sky. And I don't know, there's not really much happening in June. So for example, if they did release Titanfall 2 this month, they could run the event that maybe it being the only big game releasing, it could get a lot of media coverage, but also it could be swept under the rug because most people who don't follow media outlets could believe that June is just a boring month, there's no need to buy games, let me just save up my money for the big month of August, and the next thing you know, Titanfall 2 doesn't get as many sales. But that's what I believe the marketing strategy was all about. They want to expand the player base of Titanfall 2. Previously, Titanfall 1 was only on the Xbox 360 and the PC. It was like a Microsoft exclusive for their console and Windows. And PlayStation players were not really happy about that, and to be honest with you, I believe it hurt the game because the game didn't actually last very long. After the first month and a half to 2 months, the player base dropped significantly. It led to the death of Titanfall because even though it was fun, I played the open beta of Titanfall 1. I enjoyed it. But then, just like everyone else who bought it after release, after the first month and a half, they realized that the game really doesn't have all that much depth into it. The reason why games, for example, this is what I think, the reason why games like Counter-Strike, games like Call of Duty last so long is either through continuous revision of the content and addition to content. That's in the case of Call of Duty in terms of first-person shooters. Each year there's a new Call of Duty to keep you anticipated, and there are new map packs, there are new guns, there are new weapons. Now in the case of Counter-Strike, which is something I'm more familiar with, the formula has been the same since it was released in terms of Counter-Strike Global Offensive. What happens with those games, why there's so much longevity, is because the skill ceiling to get good at Counter-Strike is very, very large. You need to spend hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of hours to really become good at the game. So in that case, you are invested in the sense that you are learning each and every day, just like you are learning each and every day in Titanfall. But the thing is, there's so much more to learn. There are so many more stages, there are so many more guns, there are so many more setups and strategies. So in that regard, Titanfall 1 felt a little bit encumbered and shallow. But this time they're like, okay, we don't know if this game will last as long as other first-person shooters usually do in terms of hype and player base and tournaments and esports. So let's expand the player base instead of just constricting it to Microsoft platforms, i.e. the Xbox One now and the Windows Play Store on the Windows 10. And I'm assuming it will be on Windows 8 and Windows 7 as well. They're now saying that let's move on to PlayStation 4 because that's another untapped resource that we had, and potentially due to contract we couldn't actually make the game for PlayStation 4. So now people actually get the chance to play it on PC, play it on Xbox One, and play it on PS4. So that's now more player base for the developers to hopefully make more profit from and get more feedback as to how to make the game better. Now, they did show some multiplayer footage in their trailer, and they did show some other footage. I'll talk about that in a bit. But in terms of the multiplayer footage, what they were trying to emphasize on is not the typical pilots and robots battling each other, because we already know that's the premise of Titanfall. It's all about these soldiers, these pilots who pilot heavy-duty mechs into the battlefield to fight and take over command points and fighting this intergalactic war. There's a brewing war coming in space, on Earth, defending the galaxy, etc. But then they're thinking to themselves, of course, if we just copy and paste all the gadgets and the guns we had in the first game, there won't really be that much of a difference from the first game, because yes, the graphics are better. The graphics are much more improved as compared to Titanfall 1, because it's been so many years since Titanfall 1. They've had time to refine their graphical engine and potentially make things better visually. And of course, the generation has changed. That was Xbox 360, this is now Xbox One and PS4. That was back in the day. So of course the graphical engines would have improved, but that's just not enough in this day and age just to say, yeah, the graphics are better but the gameplay is still the same. That really, to be honest with you, wouldn't be enough to make this game survive. So in that regard, I'm assuming that there'll be a lot of rebalancing of player movement and robot movement. That is a given, but that wasn't the main focus. In this particular trailer, they were showing situations in which pilots now had grappling hooks. So for example, when a pilot ejected, he noticed that, hey, there's another pilot in midair who also ejected from his mech that were blowing up. So usually in the first Titanfall game, in that particular situation, if you had two pilots flying in the air, you might end up either having to shoot at each other or try evade each other's shots while falling to the ground. So now with the grappling hook, you can actually grapple to the other pilot and get into melee range, or you can grapple onto walls. Now you can use the grappling hook to grapple onto robots and get more leverage, because parkour was actually a big system in the game in terms of movement. It's been in games Mirror's Edge and beyond, even before that. And first-person shooters took upon this premise of parkour when it came to Call of Duty, Ghosts, and etc. So many games probably I never played or I don't know about. So they were introducing new guns, new systems of parkour, the grappling hook. I saw a grenade that looked like a gravity grenade similar to Zarya in Overwatch, in which the grenade exploded and sucked in all enemy combatants that were near the explosion into a somewhat black hole, into a gravity situation. And they were left there floating. So I'm assuming during that state they might not take damage, but of course if they're stuck in one area, you can then offload with your machine gun or whatever weapon you're using, or you can actually take out a lethal grenade and blow them all up into smithereens. New gadgets, new guns, new setups. The fact that they're adding guns and weapons means that the game would have to be rebalanced even more, and meaning there are more ways to kill your opponent, more ways to strategize on how to attack the level as compared to Titanfall 1. So graphical improvements are there. Weapon improvements, I would assume. I'm not sure about the actual handling and aiming of the guns and shooting of the guns, but there are new guns, there are new gadgets, and there are new elements of traversal and parkour within the game. Yeah, it's really cool. Like I said, I wasn't really a big fan of Titanfall 1. I never actually bought it after the beta. The beta experience was actually enough for me. I had my fill of the game and I didn't want to play it again, and I never actually did. So my points of view of the difference between 1 and 2 might be wrong in that regard, because I actually don't have that much experience. I only have a couple hours. Maybe I played 10 or 20 hours of the beta. So I might not be the most reliable source for information on gameplay improvement. They were talking about, after showing this trailer, you know, there are times when they're trying to pander and banter to the crowd, trying to give them reasons to love this game, and they're like, there are 6 new Titans, there are progression systems, there are new maps. Of course, it's a new game, we can't be using the same maps, but they did have to specify that they're new maps, which kind of makes me think that some of the old maps might actually return into Titanfall 2. It's a possibility. And they were talking about how before the game is launched, like from now on to the launch of the game in August, there will be different services online, probably on the Titanfall website, in terms of newsletters, information, signing up for, maybe there'll be a pre-release beta. I'm not too sure about that, but the main focus was on the newsletter, so that people can sign up to get more info on the game before it releases in August, so people can research more on the game, and they're inviting people to get as much information about the game and televise it themselves to give their points of view on the game. That to me is cool. Fair and fine, newsletters are usually boring. Most people don't like reading at all, but that's really cool in the sense that they are, how can I say this? They are allowing players to market their game for them. Of course, they will be doing marketing up until release, but if you've got major outlets, for example, YouTubers out there who are popular who'll be getting onto these newsletters and they see information that is actually interesting for them, then they'll start sharing it to their player base and their communities. Then they'll be like, wow, I never actually knew that they would put this and this into a Titanfall. Or maybe there'll be some people who'll be just saying, wow, I never knew Titanfall existed, and this information I'm being given about Titanfall 2 from the newsletters, the marketing and so forth is actually worth my attention, and I might end up getting this game. Well, in that regard, it's quite awesome. And interesting news before we move on. Titanfall 2, let's head back down to Titanfall 1. Titanfall 1 actually was a bummer in the sense of the African player base, and specifically Southern African countries, i.e. South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia. It was really bad because it was a strict online-only game, first of all. The campaign was online-only co-op campaign, which was heavily criticized to be terrible. I saw it, it was awful and short, and the story was kind of convoluted and bad. So pretty much, if you had no servers, any EA servers installed currently in your country at the time, you wouldn't actually be even able to play the campaign. You just bought a dead game. And in the time, I remember listening to some of my friends in South Africa. They were talking about how they're not going to ever get the chance to play Titanfall, and part of the reasons were servers and online, and the fact that the entire game is online. And then EA just said, sorry, no Titanfall in South Africa. That was awful, because they were like, okay, a whole region, boom, you're not going to get the game. South Africa as a country, you're not getting the game. SADC region as a region in Africa, you're not getting the game. That's that. And I was like, that's actually quite dumb, because at the time I was playing the beta, I was online, I was like, hey, I need to get some of all my old friends into this stuff, and they just couldn't play because EA was like, no. Now they actually came up live on TV, well, not on TV, they came up live on stream, and they apologized. They were like, well, sorry that, Titanfall couldn't actually be played in South Africa, and now it's going to be able to. They actually, this time round, the biggest criticism of Titanfall 1 is hopefully going to be addressed, and that's the fact that there was no single player offline campaign that was strictly story, cinematic, and a focus on single player gameplay. Now there actually will be one, which is the cool part. There will be a single player campaign, everyone will be able to play it. I'm assuming in terms of the server problem that they had with all the different regions, that should be fixed, so South African players also will be able to play. So one of the biggest criticisms of the game has been addressed. They were like, okay guys, you complained that the game lacked in single player content, so here's the single player content. I don't know. To me, there's this one thing I don't understand, is that you listen to people, they'll be saying, for example, this is something you hear most of the time, you hear people saying, we buy Call of Duty every year, but who the hell even plays single player? We just buy Call of Duty for the multiplayer, right? But then when a game releases without the single player, or the time when they were talking about we want to release Call of Duty without the single player, or maybe we release a Call of Duty with multiplayer and just call that the starter pack, and then you can upgrade to the Call of Duty that includes single player if you want it digitally. And people started complaining like, no, there's no way, you can't do that shit, we want the single player, But then you put the single player, no one plays the single player. So I don't know, there's this one, I think it all comes down to the psychology of value for money. Even if you buy the game, for example, you buy Call of Duty, or you buy Titanfall, or you buy Battlefield or Battlefront, Star Wars, which didn't have a single player, and you realize that that game doesn't, you have this not fear, but this thought that you didn't get your money's worth. But then you go on and play hundreds of hours of multiplayer, so I don't really know what people are complaining about. So I don't know. It's a very interesting point of view. I don't know if you understand it more than me, but I personally don't. In terms of the story, it seems to take place after the events of Titanfall 1. Titanfall 1 accumulated into one big war in space, a galactic war. So it seems like this story, the single player, seems to take place after that. It follows one robot whose designation I've forgotten, who doesn't have a pilot anymore? The organization that's trying to get information from this robot is asking, who was your designated pilot? The robot seems to state the name, but then the pilot is no longer there. We're not sure if the pilot is dead, the importance of the pilot, and maybe the pilot could be out there somewhere in the galaxy. No one really knows. So this robot is all alone. And there are many robots that survived the war, but their pilots died. So it's playing on the tropes of humans trusting machines and machines trusting humans, because this new robot is then assigned to a foot soldier who isn't actually a pilot. So and it shows them helping each other, the robot saving the foot soldier learning how to use the robot helping the foot soldier learn how to use all the mechanics of the robot. So there are these emotional ties between man and machine, and how man and machine can actually be friends, and to fight this greater battle that's happening. I believe that's the main tropes of the story, but I'm not too sure. And it's quite cool. They're playing on emotional ties. It's better than some of the stories that, well, potentially to me this concept is better than some of the stories we've been dished in the past of just, oh, there's a terrorist organization, stop the terrorist organization. Oh, there's a terrorist dictator guy who's bombed this country, go kill him. You know, those stories have gotten old. Now hopefully they'll be playing on something a bit more emotional, a bit more abstract. Machines, technology, human beings, emotions, I guess trust and love. Can a machine trust? Is that even possible? Can a machine feel emotions for a human being? Can a machine transcend the boundaries of just machinery and become something more? Can a man learn to love a robot? What is that bond exactly? You know, there's so many things that they could play on. If they do it right, it could really be a redeeming factor for Titanfall 2. But for now, I guess that's just too much on that. What happened next? They had a sports section. Of course, EA, Electronic Arts, has been big on sports games since I could remember, ever since I was a little baby. They've been doing all kinds of sports games, but the two main sports games that they had at E3 was Madden NFL, of course, Madden NFL for 2017 and FIFA 17. Now, for the Madden NFL, they didn't really actually show the new gameplay of the game, how it's gonna be like, etc. Instead, the presentation, which was really a cool presentation because they actually had 3 different locations connected together via satellite to host the E3 conference. It was in London. I believe I forgot the location of the actual E3 in America, which state it's in, and there was a third location that I've forgotten, but they were all connected together and they were all sharing the spotlight of E3. And then when one particular venue had something to say, the others would listen and watch via big screen. It was really quite cool. But in the terms of NFL, they were talking about how NFL has always been, in terms of EA sports games, one of the pioneers of their esports division with major leagues, premier leagues and challenger leagues, similar to what happens in FIFA. And they're saying that now they want to introduce these new competitive modes into the game for more tournaments, so that even normal players, for example you and me, who lead normal lives at home and aren't actual full-time gamers or full-time professional gamers, you can actually get the chance. For example, you buy NFL, you get good at the game, you learn the game, you play it with your friends, you believe you can do more than that. Usually what most people would do in that regard is they would go online and play online. For example, I play Street Fighter and there's a ranking system. Currently I haven't played ranked, but I can tell you that I'm ranked 38,000 in the world, and I believe Street Fighter sold like 1.4 million or was it 2.4 million units. So I've got a rough estimate that out of 2 million people, I am 38,000 in that range of players. So I've got a rough estimate of my skill level based on the amount of time I train, my win-loss ratio, and my activities in life. So now they're saying that they're gonna introduce tournaments into this online multiplayer situation that they have built for the game, where players can actually move in regional tournaments online, and then the winners of these regional tournaments will be noted within the game, and they'll be noticed within the archives of EA in terms of the leaderboards. And then that way top players in different regions and top players in different countries will be able to be contacted, and then hopefully they can get them to more regional tournaments which are live, such as the EA major events and the premier events, similar to what most other esports games like Dota, League of Legends, StarCraft, Street Fighter, where they have online, even Mortal Kombat X, they'll have online tournaments. People sign up for those tournaments, they win those tournaments, and you get money and prizes. But the fact that you are now more popular because these tournaments are televised, even though they are how can I say this? Even though they're online, they are televised and streamed. In the case of NFL, they'll be televised on ESPN. Now you've got some publicity and marketing towards your name, and then they can actually contact you to meet in person for these live tournaments and to go on to the grand major events that they have on a yearly basis, which I believe is cool. You're giving the chance to people who, for example, if you live in a remote country, let's just say you live in some country in Eastern Europe, you live in some country in Asia, and maybe there's some EA major event that usually takes place in America or England or someplace in Western Europe that you don't have the money to go to, and also you have to qualify for these events in maybe local tournaments that happen in those said countries, so you can't travel there on a monthly basis just to play NFL and hopefully try qualify. It costs a lot of money and it's not a good idea. So now when you guarantee your spot on an online event, you can now contact EA and be like, hey, I live in such a region, I'm currently the best of this region and I'd really love to take part, could you help me? And they could potentially help you. So that's what they were talking about when it comes to NFL, big major league gaming. And they then moved on to FIFA 17 with the same premise of online events, premier tournaments, challenger tournaments, EA major tournaments for FIFA as well. This is uniform amongst all of their sporting franchises that are popular and have a large esports following, but the NFL and FIFA are the biggest ones, so I'm assuming this is the reason why they only focused on those. I'm not too sure if EA is still big when it comes to other sports games like rugby, cricket, or baseball, or other things, but I'm sure they still make them till now. I haven't seen any of those games in a long time. But same for FIFA. They were talking about the same things, but then they were talking about how since EA is adopting the Frostbite graphics engine for all of their games, NFL and FIFA will be also using the Frostbite engine. Recent games that were using this engine, Star Wars Battlefront, Battlefield, of course, is the pioneer of the Frostbite engine from back way, when now FIFA will be doing the same, and it's quite awesome because it's now cool to see sports games in high detailed graphic. Now you can be like, hey, that actually looks like Rooney. In the past, fair and fine, you could see resemblance to the players, of course, but that resemblance, I guess, with each iteration of the game will actually get the likeness of the characters that you like. Oh, that's Rooney. Oh, that's Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Oh, that's you'll be seeing, oh, that's Giroud. Oh, that's Arsene Wenger. And actually in FIFA, they've actually rendered the managers into the game for the story modes and just in general. Now during the cutscenes, maybe when you score a goal, maybe when there's a foul and there's a cutscene playing, you actually get to see the reaction of the manager, so they scan them in. They're very lifelike. Of course, it's a game, so it's never really lifelike, but you know what I mean. When you see Wenger, you know, oh my goodness, that's actually him. Oh, that's actually Mourinho. You actually get to see, oh, that's Van Gaal, and you will be able to recognize them better in the Frostbite engine. And now they'll actually be introducing a cinematic story mode in which you create a character. Usually this has been done in the past, but it wasn't actually a story mode. It was just a career mode where you pick a team, for example, and you play through each and every league, buying, transferring players, and similar to FIFA Manager, but actually playing the game. that was team-based, and then they had the Be a Pro, where you could create your own player. For example, I could create myself and put myself into a team that I like, for example. Or you could pick a pre-existing player, I believe, and then go through with that player and get transferred. You make some decisions, like the management wants you to switch positions. Do you agree? Do you leave the team after your contract's done, etc.? But your whole focus is you're only playing one character in a team. The rest of the players are controlled by the AI, and it's all about you and that character. You're playing with that character. The story is all about that character. When you're transferred from one team to another, that's it. You move with that character to the other team and you never look back. That's been there, but there weren't actual cinematic stories and cutscenes associated with it. It was all just written text in menus, and then you play the game. Now you actually have a story mode. You can create yourself, and you're like, oh, my family, my sisters, oh, I'm gonna be a soccer star. You go to the academy, you train, the story is there, you talk with the managers and all that stuff. It's actually a full-blown story mode with cinematic cutscenes and all that stuff, and a dynamic story from league to league. I'm not sure how long the story mode will be, but it's actually awesome. Of course, it can't be as long as the careers of back in the previous games, because those could go on forever because they weren't cutscenes. In this case, there are limited numbers of cutscenes, and of course the story arc has to start and it has to finish. It's limited, so I'm not too sure how they're gonna work it. But one thing I wish they did is take the face scan recognition software that they put into NBA into this, so that I can actually scan my face scan my face into the game and have a lifelike representation of myself in the story mode, so I can see myself in the cutscenes. But the character creation, if it's just manual character creation, then it's really good, because they did show the guy who they modeled the in-game story character from in real life, and they really looked alike. The 3D model, you could see resemblance to the real person, and they called this character, this story mode, they called it The Journey, and it's quite cool. I believe soccer players will like it. Everyone has a dream. Most sports fans have a dream of, you know, like for example, if I loved soccer since childhood, part of my childhood, I would have loved to be a soccer player. You know, if I loved F1 at some point, I wouldn't have minded. You know, I wouldn't mind getting into the seat of a car and just racing like the F1 racers. These are desires that people have in life, and not everyone can be a soccer player or be a soccer star, but seeing yourself in a game achieving that could bring some closure to yourself. Like, hey, that was nice, you know, I wish I could be like that, but at least I can enjoy it in a game. And I guess now in a special fashion you can make fun of your friends because in real life we always, well, I have friends we always make fun of in terms of soccer. One staunch Arsenal player who's been very pissed off at Wenger at his decisions in terms of substituting certain players. Wenger's seemingly uncanny love for Giroud and Mertesacker in every game, even though they aren't playing very well. So now you can actually make fun of the guy, because as you're playing with each other and maybe you're losing and you see your manager like, like, hey, look at what Wenger's doing, you know what I mean? Wenger's shouting at your players and stuff like that. It's actually quite cool. And besides that, really the EA conference was really fun. We actually got some peeks at Mass Effect Andromeda. Wow. it's really cool. I played all 3 Mass Effect games. I liked all Mass Effect games, but personally for me, Mass Effect 1 was like bae. Mass Effect 1, if Mass Effect 1 was a woman, chances are when I played it I would have married it. Mass Effect 1 was just the best for me. And it's quite cool to see them bringing back aspects of Mass Effect 1 into Andromeda, because in Mass Effect 2 you could only probe planets from orbit to extract minerals, and in Mass Effect 3 planet exploration was close to none. But in Mass Effect 1 you could actually explore the galaxy and land on different planets and actually walk around and see different life forms evolving. You could see different animal creatures in different planets. It was cool. You had your SUV truck, so you could drive around in those planets that you'd land in, and you would even find some technology there, maybe some bases from previous explorers who visited these areas. So I like the fact that they're bringing these aspects of planet exploration, galactic exploration into Andromeda from Mass Effect 1, because like I said, I loved Mass Effect 1. It's the best for me. So this could be a reason alone, just that alone could be the reason to get me back into Mass Effect 2 and 3. I played them, they were nice, but besides some of the key moments in the stories, they weren't really all that awesome for me. But what they were talking about Andromeda is that you are part of an expedition. The whole story of Shepard and what happened in Mass Effect 1 and 3, they're leaving that in the past. I'm not too sure if Andromeda is after the Mass Effect trilogy or before the trilogy. I'm not too sure. But what they're saying is that you are part of an expedition that is leaving the Milky Way galaxy of Earth to go actually find a new refuge for humankind. They're leaving the Milky Way galaxy to find a new home. I'm not too sure what has happened to Earth for people to want to abandon it for another place. That could be the key thing to the story, but I'm not too sure. They're saying that you're leaving, you are part of an expedition going searching far and wide into the Andromeda galaxy to find a new home that human beings can inhabit in, and they're playing on the tropes that in this galaxy you are the aliens. You know, back in the day you'd look at the human beings and then after that you see Krogans and all the other different Batarians and you'd be like, oh, they are the aliens in our galaxy. But now you are the invaders, you are the new species, you are the aliens that knows like, ooh, what are these creatures, that these humanoid things, what are they doing here? You are the aliens in this place. And I'm assuming that there'll be a lot of political and diplomatic anger towards the new people. Maybe there'll be some people siding with the human beings trying to help them, and there'll be some people who'll be like, get out of our galaxy, you are not welcome here, there's no home for you here. And then that will be the racial ethnical should I say battle between, are humans considered to be part of the galaxy? Who are these things that are lesser than us? You know what I mean? There'll be a lot of racism, I believe, towards the human race, and lots of story based on that. And of course, game is powered by the Frostbite engine, so more graphical fidelity. Seems like EA is using this graphics engine for all their games now, like I said, so you can't escape the Frostbite engine. Andromeda is saying they said they'll release it 2017, early 2017. It was supposed to be 2016, but it was delayed obviously because it didn't seem like they were ready to show anything of the game. Now they're saying 2017, no specific date as always, so there's a chance they could just delay it again in 2017 to late 2017, maybe August, October, maybe even November 2017. There's a chance, even though they're saying early 2017, I don't believe them for now. And finally, to close things off for this discussion, I know it's been long, EA each year seems to try catch the hearts of the journalists by putting in some small indie studio that they probably just recently bought, and whichever indie studio this is, they're always releasing some cute game. Last year was Unraveled, where it was the bond between you and this player doll character. It was supposed to be a love, heart-wrenching thing, and they managed to pull it off. The journalists were all, they got tugged on their heartstrings and they were in love with this game. They tried to do the same thing again, but the person who came to deliver this presentation, even though it was his first E3 conference, I can't blame the guy for feeling pressure. He was stammering and stuttering, and the presentation didn't look good, and no one really cared about Fe, the game. Was it Fe or Fee? I don't even know. I didn't care. The way I looked at it was that EA seems to throw in a charity section and an indie game section that are all supposed to make EA look like the good guys, or at least in terms of the charity thing. Yeah, if they are donating the money, then I guess you could really say that they are the good guys. But my points of view on charity is that if you're gonna do charity, do it. Don't boast about it, don't televise it, don't market the fact that you're just give the money. If you're gonna give the money, we don't need to know that. The fact that you're televising the fact that you're doing charity means that it's a publicity stunt more than a genuine thing from the heart. So to me, EA is just trying to look cute and loving and stuff like that by hiring all these indie companies to make cute and loving video games. Fe didn't actually look all that good. Looked boring, to be honest with you, and Unravel looked boring too. Unravel is one of those games you play it once, maybe you'll even finish it, and I don't see you playing it 2, 3, 4 times over. It's 1 week or 1 week kind of game. But it sold a lot because of the hype. Oh, it's so cute. Oh, look at that game. Oh, indie studio, blah blah blah. Maybe I'm being harsh on the indie studios themselves. Maybe EA is to blame. I don't know. But anyway, in this game, you are the small creature who goes around trying to learn the environment. It's in a foresty area. I'm assuming it's a baby, and you are trying to learn about the environment. It doesn't seem like the creature has any parents, or maybe the parents were taken away, so you're all alone in this world trying to learn more about it. And you learn different songs, similar to how maybe for example in Skyrim you are the Dragonborn, and then you learn different dragon words which give you power. In this case, you learn different songs that give you sight or insight into the environment you're in, and you want to learn and explore this environment and figure out your origins as a creature. Where did you come from and what is your purpose? But there are monsters in this forest who are seeking to destroy the forest, so you need to learn about your origins as quick as possible so that you could probably stop these monsters before it's too late. Now that I read my notes on this premise, I don't know if it was my deduction or they actually did convey the meaning of the game so clearly. I don't know. Now that I'm reading it again, it feels like a cool premise. But the way it was presented by the guys, by EA and the indie studio developer, I didn't like that presentation. And closing off, they were saying they have multiple studios. I believe it was Respawn Gaming, Visceral, and EA's who made Battlefront? I forgot. It wasn't Respawn or Visceral who made Battlefront 3, but the 3 main studios working under EA for Star Wars are working with LucasArts Films, working with Disney for more content of Star Wars games. So first of all, Battlefield 3 might be receiving new content DLC at the end of this year in 2017, and also they are saying that they are working on a Battlefield 4. Well, I guess now you call it Battlefield 2 because they retcon the series. That recent Battlefield, Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront is now Battlefront 1, and this will be sort of Battlefront 2 or Battlefront 2017. They're making that, and since they admitted that the previous Battlefront game didn't actually have single player because they were trying to release the game in time for the movie, so they cut a lot of things, and you can tell the game has no content. It's really bad. So now they're saying they're going to make sure that there is a single player campaign. Quote unquote Titanfall 2 problems. Here we go again. It's the same. Titanfall 1 doesn't have a single player content, so Titanfall 2 must have a single player content. So it's the same now with Star Wars. They're working on that for the Battlefront series. Visceral Games will be working on a Battlefront, a story third person action Star Wars game, potentially to be released maybe 2018. Respawn Gaming is also working on a third-person game for 2017, 2018 and onwards. They didn't specify any particular years. They just said 2017, 2018 and onwards. That's all they said. But currently the Star Wars games that are there, Battlefront and the 2 MMOs, I forgot their names, they definitely will be receiving more DLC content and more story expansions. Well, not in the case of Battlefront, just for the case of the MMOs, there'll be more story expansions for players to enjoy and indulge themselves in while they wait for the new Star Wars IPs that will be coming out with. But pretty much that's all I had to say about the EA conference. It ended with the Battlefield 1 multiplayer live stream 64-man tournament. It was quite cool. They had celebrities there, Zac Efron, Snoop Dogg, Jamie Foxx, The Game. I even believe Wiz Khalifa was there. They had famous YouTubers like C-Nanas and all that stuff. It was actually quite fun, and I advise you to go check it out. But for now, I guess that will be it. I'll be focusing more of my attentions on EA, Microsoft and Sony. Bethesda and Ubisoft, sadly, you'd have to go get your own preview or summary from someone else. But for now, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast.